Hey guys, welcome back to another release day reaction. Today we are going to read This Woven Kingdom by Tahereh Mafi. I might not be pronouncing Tahereh's name correctly, excuse me. Here's what I know about this book. It is 500 pages long. This is a YA fantasy trilogy. It's already set up as a trilogy. The other really cool thing that made me very interested in this book is that it's based on Persian mythology, which is something I haven't really read before. There's not much in the description of this on Amazon or Goodreads. It says the main character's name, it looks like Eliza, who is a servant, and then we have a prince named Cameron. That's pretty much all we know. So I'm very excited to get into this. I'm a little nervous because I've read a few YA fantasies and I'm not always a huge fan, but I can usually get lost in the world building, so that's usually fun. Let's get started and I will update you when I have more to say. Okay, we're about 10% through.
Someone's very sleepy.
So we have 2 points of view here. We have Eliza, who's a servant. I'm very fascinated by her so far. We're getting little snippets of her past and also of the world. She seems to be an orphan who is working in the city now. She ran from the law, and she is a race called Jinn, Jinn, which is supposedly derived by the devil himself named Isbli. And she gets visions of him every now and then, and he gives her riddles, and every time he does that, something horrible happens. And I don't know if it's just her that sees this. When it first happened, because she has a fear of the dark, I thought it was like PTSD or something, but it might actually very well be the actual devil. She gets a vision of this boy as well, or a man. I can't tell how old these people are. A little bit more about the Jinn. They have a sort of alliance with the humans. They kind of refer to them as the clay because they're from the earth and water. And the Jinn are built from fire, apparently. They have some sort of equality pact or act. I don't really understand it quite yet, but it seems that the Jinn aren't allowed to use their powers so that they're on equal footing with the humans, the clay. If they use these powers, or they're thought to have used these powers, they are somehow punished very badly. I'm not sure how badly, but it sounds pretty bad. As far as the powers of the Jinn, I don't know exactly what everything is, but the way that you can really tell them apart is that their eyes are different, and there is a tiny bit of lore here, which I'm thinking is maybe the original Persian mythology about Isbli, the devil. And in this little snippet, it says something about the irises have turned white, so maybe it's only your pupil that shows, which actually sounds pretty creepy. Other than that, because they're forged from fire, they can't burn. They also don't need food, and they have some sort of invisible blood or clear blood. Eliza seems to be different even from most of the Jinn. She seems different than everyone else. She has some sort of power. It says frost in her veins made her unusual to her own people. But yes, right now she's a servant, and it seems to be that she's grown up. She was raised as kind of a wealthy person, and it says that she knows she has a possession of a great fortune, yet she's doing this, and we're not too sure why. We do know that she is orphaned. We don't know the circumstances of that. But yes, the devil visits her in this dream. I don't know if it's a vision or it actually is fully firm in front of her. She says she felt the mattress shift, and she sees this vision of a boy man. She sees him the next day in the city village, and she freaks out and she runs off. Then we get his point of view. He's the prince of their city, and he thinks that she's a spy. So he's all suspicious of her, and he probably thinks that she's a bad guy from another province or something. I can tell right now that there is going to be a lot of politics about, resources and territories. That's something I really don't enjoy in a fantasy book. So I'm hoping it's engaging enough that I don't get bored. But Cameron is the boy that she sees, and honestly, I don't think I I don't think I like him very much, at least not yet. He just seems, he is just filled with anger. That's what's been told to us. His father's recently passed away, but he seems like the kind of prince that talks down to other people, but he's not being shown as like a snotty guy, but he's kind of acting snotty. So yeah, that's all I have for you right now. I will update closer to the halfway point and we'll see what happens. I'm guessing these two are gonna have to meet at some point. There have been a few pretty graphic scenes or descriptions. That riddle that the devil says is pretty effing graphic. So yeah, I appreciate graphic content. If there's gonna be like killing and things like that, you might as well just go all the way. Oh, one more thing. As far as the time, obviously this is a fantasy world, but it seems to be like olden times before electricity. There are corsets and they have lanterns. It's also almost like the author is trying to write in an old-timey way, or maybe they are trying to write in like a folklore, mythological kind of way. And sometimes it comes off as like, oh, that sounds like really kind of old school, but other times it comes off like they were trying a little too hard. There are a few word choices as well in here that are just like, no one has ever heard of that word. You obviously just looked in a thesaurus and tried to find the most fancy old word that you could find. So the king is requiring the prince to throw a ball, and he is telling him that he has to get married so that he can secure the line. This is sounding a lot like Cinderella, especially because Eliza is a servant and like she was in front of the fireplace. There were embers on her. So it sounds like a very Cinderella story, although Eliza is like trained in combat. And she's a cool race of being that has superpowers. So right now, the prince is stalking Eliza, and it's giving big Edward Cullen vibes of him stalking Bella, because he's just creeping on her outside of the house that she works for. Big Edward Cullen energy. It's the next day. I'm at the halfway point, and wow, I was getting a little bored. It's kind of slow, but we just had a plot twist, like an actual plot twist. And I like it. I like it, I like it, I like it. Yet time is like going by so slowly. I think 2 days have passed in like almost 250 pages. The ball has not happened yet. The two main characters have met, and there's an instant attraction between the two of them, which comes off a little bit like insta love, much like Cinderella or any other fairy tale. I still don't really like Cameron. Like, he makes some interesting points so that you can see that he's more open-minded than, say, his grandfather, the king. But at the same time, he just sounds so privileged that it's not even, like, it doesn't even count. Just because he's not, yeah. There's another plot point. I'm not going to give you specifics because this is going to be spoiler-free. But the prince's, like, royal line is threatened somehow by Eliza. And so they are not okay with her, existing. I'm just gonna say that. So as of right now, this is being set up to be quite a, what's that trope? Forbidden love story a la Romeo and Juliet. But I do think we have possibly seen the introduction of a future love triangle. I feel like I just read a tiny little bit of inconsistent writing, or maybe a plot hole, because Eliza was just attacked. The next day was supposed to be the ball, but someone is saying, I'm trying not to spoil anything, I'm sorry. Someone is saying that they had been watching her for 2 days after that, yet the ball hasn't happened yet. I wonder if that is something that the writer messed up on, or maybe I'm just not reading it correctly. Okay, I'm a little past 70%, and I'm not gonna read too much more tonight, so I just wanted to give another update. I always get awkward when I say these things. We've had a moment between the two characters. It was pretty steamy for like a YA scene. It does seem super insta-loving, and it feels really a lot like Romeo and Juliet. Almost so that it's almost annoying how insta-love it is, but at least the prince wasn't just pining away after some Rosalind girl minutes before he decided he is obsessed with Eliza now. So I'll give him that. This is also giving me vibes though that, the prince, I can't even remember his name really. I keep saying the prince. His name is Cameron. Cameron is the first man in that capacity that she's ever really talked to or met, as far as we know. She's lived her childhood in solitude. So it feels a little like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Farah, and Tamlin. I always forget his name because he's so annoying. And I have to say the prince feels a little bit like the Tamlin situation where, yes, Eliza might fall in love with him and she might be very attracted to him, but it might just be her first kind of experience of knowing a man. I don't know. I feel like I don't know why I don't like him so much. He's beginning to see more than just his viewpoint. Because he's decided he's obsessed with Eliza, he is like, oh wow, I had no idea that servants were treated so badly, which is just like a little icky, because maybe you should have known that as a prince of a kingdom. Yeah, this is a trilogy, so the possibilities of what happens, obviously at the end of this book, I haven't read it yet, but even further, I mean, the possibilities are endless. We shall see. I just finished the book, and we're shook. We're shook. Shook. Oh my gosh. The story was going so slow, like it could have been edited down, but my goodness, the last 5% of this book was banging. There was surprise after surprise. Why couldn't the whole book have been like this? And my goodness, there was a cliffhanger, because at one point I was thinking, maybe I won't like be very excited to read the next book. Like maybe I'll read it because it wasn't bad, but now I have to read it. Obviously I can't tell you anything because it'll spoil, but I'm very curious. Not everything was explained, obviously. One character in particular, I'm really interested in how he fits into everything. I just don't understand what's going on. So yeah, I am very intrigued to continue this trilogy. Let me get my tripod. Okay, so final thoughts. I feel like I might need to step away for a second because that ending changed everything. Wow. Okay, overall, I thought this was a good book. I don't know whether it's this author's debut. I'm not too sure. I could probably find out. Okay, no, this author has actually published quite a few things, including that series called Shatter Me, which is actually just released on my library. Like it just came off of my holds. So I was gonna actually do a video about that. That's interesting, wow. Okay, this book was pretty lengthy, and I don't mind a lengthy book. Why do I think that's funny? It was a little slow, and again, I don't usually mind slowness, but it's just, I feel like there were parts that definitely didn't need to be included. Also, because we have 2 points of view between Cameron and Eliza, sometimes we have an overlapping, and it's like, we don't need to take off from this point because we just saw it explained by the other character. The only other thing I can really critique is just interesting language choice, because I feel the author made a very intentional decision to use kind of old-timey language, especially by the more educated characters, maybe to distinguish that they're educated. But there were times where it felt disingenuous. Other than that, I thought this is pretty well done. I feel like the characters themselves, Eliza obviously is like our main character, though there are 2 points of view. Eliza really does feel like the true main character, and I have a lot of interest in her as a character. She seems to be pretty well formed. We got insight a little bit into her past, though we could use a lot more, which I'm sure we'll get in the next couple books. I really like some of the side characters, like Omid and Miss Huda. You're not gonna know who those people are if you don't read the book, but some of the side characters that aren't obviously prevalent to the story, they're fun. And that's something I really do enjoy about YA fantasy, is that some of the characters are just so beloved instantly, you know what I mean? And then we met someone near the end who was very interesting and seems kind of like a Rhysand character. I hate to really compare this to A Court of Thorns and Roses, but Eliza I don't want to say she's like Farrah, because Farrah really bugs the shit out of me, but Cameron really did feel like a Tamlin in some ways, and I feel like this other character that I'm not going to say because it's kind of a spoiler feels like a Ruzant. Also, the devil as a character, how interesting. The actual romance in this, I like that there's a little bit of pining and forbidden romance. It did feel very insta-love to me, which, you know, there was a sort of steamy scene that really did feel like, oh wow, these two people really do have quite an attraction to each other. But again, how far does attraction really go? Also, I'm really interested in what precise mythology in Persian mythology this is talking about. It really did have a Cinderella feel. I mean, there was a ball and she had to be somewhere at midnight. It was very reminiscent of Cinderella. What definitely got me, I'm trying to think of how I would rate this book. And I think I was gonna give it a 3-star, but man, that last few chapters really had me and really made the entire book, which is crazy. Out of 500 pages, maybe 50 of them were super engaging. Oh, that sounds a little harsh. I mean, I was engaged the entire book, but wow, those last handful of pages just really had me. So I'll probably wait a couple days before I actually rate this. But right now I'd say 3.75. I'm trying to think who might like this book. Obviously, if you read fantasy at all, I think you should give this a try. If you enjoy YA, let me think about that. I feel like as a YA, this was a very strong book. There weren't any pitfalls of, I don't know, this didn't feel weak as a story. It felt like a very strong story. Everyone had a purpose, even though some of those purposes are still unknown to us. But I feel like everyone made decisions that made sense, which is sometimes not the case in YA stories. So yeah, now I'm feeling a 4. Oh, well, if you end up reading this book, please let me know your thoughts. And I'm very interested what other people think of Cameron, because he's on my nerves, even though he's supposed to be likable. Like, I can tell by how he's written. We're supposed to like him. I don't know that I like him. Okay, that's it for this video. I will see you guys again soon. I am just like, wow, that ending, I have to think about it. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.